All right, here we go. Well, hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for another Lux University session. We're really excited about this one, and I know that many of you are as well. We've been getting tons of questions about AI and NetSuite lately, so we're really excited to kind of dive into this. I am Brooke Geipus, the Director of Marketing here at Luxon, and I'm joined by Heather Ransdell, a Senior NetSuite Consultant and our resident AI expert. So here we go. Today, we'll do some quick introductions to Heather and learn a little bit more about the upcoming Lux University training sessions that we have on the calendar. And then I'll kind of pass it over to Heather to really cover, what the MCP connector actually is, how to set it up, some things to kind of keep in mind before you jump in. And finally, we'll close out with our live prompting session, which I know everyone is super excited about, and as are we. So right before we get into the actual live prompting session, I'll go over the instructions of how we're going to run that piece, because it is going to be a little bit different, because we're going to allow whomever's prompt we are answering and testing to be able to speak, so that we can kind of have that back and forth a little bit easier. So I'll review those instructions before we get there so that everyone has it fresh in their mind. All right, so for some introductions here. So Heather Ransdell here, a senior NetSuite consultant on our Luxent team. Heather has over 30 years of experience in the ERP space, and her background is really rooted in accounting. So she brings just that level of finance depth that's extremely helpful when working with all of the different teams that she's working with. So she's worked extensively in areas like month-end close, audit readiness, reconciliations, intercompany accounting, multi-entity environments, and that's just to name a few. So she really understands kind of how those numbers need to work and not just how the system works. So the full kind of back and forth of how everything kind of flows together. So that combination is really what makes her so good at helping all of you guys and helping you to get the most out of your NetSuite environment. So we're excited to have Heather walking us through our presentation today. And before we jump into the presentation, I have one last note before we really jump into the good stuff here. I wanted to share just a little bit more about the goal of Lux University. I say this every single time we have one of these sessions. Lux University is all about helping your teams and your users to really feel confident and empowered using NetSuite. So whether you are a new user or just kind of looking to take your expertise to the next level, that's kind of what these sessions are designed to do. So they're built around real use cases and real submissions that you guys have asked to see if we could present, to kind of provide guidance and tips and best practices that will make your day-to-day in NetSuite a lot easier. So coming up in May, we'll be covering custom KPIs and dashboards. In June, we're going to go through some NetSuite bank reconciliation. And then in July, we'll be tackling when to use MRP. And then, as always, please note that we want this program to really grow with you. So if there is a topic that you'd like to see covered in a future training, please put it in the chat or share it with us after the presentation ends in the survey, and we can try and incorporate that into our upcoming sessions. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Heather.
Hello, everyone. I know we have a lot of people here. I'm going to try to get through the boring part of the session, which is just a little bit of details and background on the MCP connector for NetSuite, just so that we can get to that prompting session, because that part's the fun part. I've been playing with the MCP connector for a little while now, and it can do some really cool stuff. So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. It was developed by Anthropic, and they are the makers of Claude. So that's why Claude is just another AI provider, just like ChatGPT. ChatGPT or Claude both will work with NetSuite. Claude also will connect with other types of systems. So part of the beauty of this is that you could use the AI connector to connect multiple systems or get reports pulling data from multiple types of systems if you can connect Claude with the other system as well. How do I go to the next? Oh, thank you. Setup, there is some setup for the AI connector. You need to download the MCP standard Suite app out of the Suite app marketplace. You need to make sure features in NetSuite are enabled, such as server sweep script plus REST web services. You need an MCP role, which is a role that is permissions based. So NetSuite's very proud of the fact that the connector is permissions based, so it can't do anything that you do not give to that role. For each user that is connecting, if you want them to have different permissions, you would have to have different roles which have the MCP connection permissions. So they can't just connect to NetSuite with their regular role, and you control what permissions that role has. So maybe their regular role, they're allowed to write to data, but maybe you don't trust AI that much, so you don't want AI writing to NetSuite, so you're going to give the AI role view only permissions. So that's the purpose of the different connectors. Uh, you also have to connect Claude to your NetSuite. In the enterprise version, that is controlled. So the uh, administrator has to provide the license to the user. The administrator sets up the connection to NetSuite and therefore and assigns the role to the user. So if the user doesn't have all of those things, they're not going to get connected to your NetSuite environment. All right, so what it can do and what it can't do. So it can create and update records if it has permissions. It can query and find data. It can run existing Save Search, native reports, and it writes SweetQL. It can create summaries and dashboards. So it really can do a lot of things, but what it can't do is it can't create a Save Search for you. It can't create a custom field. It can't it can't approve transactions. It does retain, so the retain memory between sessions, it does retain your prior chats unless you delete them. And if you delete them, it deletes your artifacts as well. So you would want to save them aside. So it does create artifacts for you that once you get something working, you can reuse. Um, it also doesn't enforce the users to use a predefined prompt. So if you have created something and you have an artifact, doesn't enforce the user to use that. So that's uh, hopefully maybe that'll come sometime soon, but right now you can't enforce the user to have to use those artifacts in the AI tool. It does not have access to NSAW or EPM modules as of yet with NetSuite. All right, I hope everybody sees my Claude screen. So this is the screen of Claude. Claude can be either accessed through the web browser or you can download an app on your computer. So when you open the app, your Claude asks you a few questions when you first sign in so that it knows your name. So it definitely knows your name. So I'm going to preface this. I'm certainly not an expert on this. Um, this is such a new tool. Everybody's still playing with it, trying to figure out what they can and can't do with Claude. But I think I've got some good stuff uh, that I can show you. So first of all, I do have a multi-subsidiary environment, so I do have to be careful with those prompts telling it that what I want to do is in correct subsidiary. So if I tell it that I want to add a customer to US West subsidiary called, if I tell it something like that, Claude will go out and it will add that customer record. So you can see a little bit what Claude is doing and how it's thinking about what it's going to do. It likes to work with internal IDs of the subsidiary, so you can see that it's going out to get this internal ID, and then it's going to create my customer record.
Heather, as we move through these questions, would you be able to read out loud the prompts that you are putting in here just to make it so that everyone can hear very easily?
Sure. Okay, so my prompt was add a customer to US West subsidiary called Test Heather. And it's come back and it has added that customer to that subsidiary. So if I go and try to switch things around a little bit, I'll go into here. If we go down, we should see,
We're only seeing your Claude screen.
oh, why did it only share one screen? Let me, I wanted to just, let me do the share again so that I can get it to share the whole window. There we go. Much better. All right, so now I switched into the NetSuite. You can see here is the customer test tether. And you can see that it put it in my US West subsidiary. So kind of cool. Now I do have a business card that, let's see, okay, this is the one I want. All right, I have an image. Everyone can see that. That's a business card. Not a great picture, but I'm going to tell it to add this as a customer to US West subsidiary. Now it should hopefully remember the internal ID and not have to keep looking up that subsidiary. It should be learning that as we go so that it takes a little bit less time. So you can see that it read everything off that business card, and that wasn't a good picture, but it was Brooke's business card, and it added that to as a record into NetSuite. We can go back over to my NetSuite screen. We'll go back over to the bees. Is it not name order? And now we can see that that Brooke has been added as a customer in NetSuite. So I know I had one client asking if they could go to a trade show and if there was an easy way to get all those prospects into their NetSuite system. So I believe you could load up multiple pictures at a time, load them in. Claude would read them and add them in NetSuite as long as you told them to do that as a customer. Now, another thing I could tell it to do is I'm going to ask it to add me as a vendor, which, you don't want your users able to do that. We'll say add test Heather as a vendor to US West subsidiary. So, those of you that are like worried about permissions, I don't have permissions. So you can see that it came back and said, I don't have create vendor permissions, so it can't do it. So I intentionally took away my permissions for creating a vendor so that I could show you that that's what the permissions are and that it really does adhere to the NetSuite permissions. And I don't know how many others, I've got about 4 more other things. Do we have tons of questions, Brooke?
We
Uh,
just have one in so far, so start to add your questions in if you would like to answer them. We can answer Michael's question here, though. That's in the Q&A panel. Heather, if you click open the Q&A panel, um, Michael, I'm going to allow you to speak here, so you can ask questions back and forth.
I don't know where that panel is. So,
Hey, Heather.
oh, you want a budget? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if mine has a budget loaded, but we can ask it.
Okay.
Can you give, I could actually copy your prompt. That's probably easier than me trying to type because I just lost it.
Yeah, I didn't know what data you had in your instance, so I didn't want to.
Can you
Oh, I'm sorry, Heather.
provide,
That was my fault.
I'm just going to, for US West subsidiary for 2026. So the only thing I added to your prompt, even if I mistype it, it will get it okay. I just added subsidiary and I asked it to provide a budget to actual. Now, the first thing you can see it is doing, it found a budget to actual report. So it looks for a standard NetSuite report first. But if it doesn't find that report, it will go ahead and create its own with SQL, with Suite QL. I'm going to make that bigger. Now, obviously, it doesn't look like I have a budget loaded,
Yeah.
but had I had a budget loaded, it would have paired the budget to actual.
Yeah.
But that's how quickly it does it, and it gives you extra stuff that you don't ask for. And usually it'll also give you some analysis on it as well, even though you didn't ask for that. Now, if I asked for sales for US, I'm going to ask it, can you show me sales for US West subsidiary for 2026? I definitely know that I have sales
Hmm.
in here for 2026, and it will run and give me those reports. And some of these that I am giving you, I have validated, right? I
Yeah.
validated those numbers. So here's the total sales, customers with sales, top customers percentage. So it's giving me more than I asked for. It kind of anticipates what I would like to know. And I can actually show you that that revenue is probably correct because I have a P&L open on the other screen.
Nice. This is really good.
So it actually is pretty cool that it can come back and do that. Uh, the other thing I know that I've talked to someone before and they were concerned that perhaps uh, if you turned it loose with someone and you had names that were similar, that you would have an issue with that. So if I told it to create a sales order for Biggs and uh, for item, this item's a long name, 7800 space, oh wait, it's INV first. Item, INV underscore brocade, BE space 7800 space EXT extension, switch, quantity of two. Now, I will tell you in the data, I have two companies that start with the name Biggs. So it should come back and tell me that which one do you want to use? So, so if you turn somebody loose and they type part of a name, or let's say the name is Smith, it's going to come back and tell you that it found two, and here's the two that it found. Which one do you want to use is what it's going to do. So now it's saying I have Biggs Inc. or I have Big Supply. Which one do you want? Right? And then it's letting me select here at the bottom. So so it does kind of check and it looks for those duplicates as well. So if I told it to use this one, it's going to go ahead and create that sales order. All right, so for questions, Jason, his is more of
All
a
right.
question.
Yes. Feel free to read off the question there, Heather, and I will
All
allow
right. The
Jason to
question
talk.
from Jason is, how does Claude know whether your question should be answered via MCP or if it was a normal question for AI? It kind of depends. Sometimes I will specifically tell it NetSuite, and sometimes it will answer it. If you're not connected to NetSuite, then it tells you how to do it in NetSuite. So let's say your connection, you need to reconnect your connections because sometimes you do have to go back in and reconnect. Let's say you shut down your computer or something like that, so you might have to reconnect it. So most part, it makes that assumption of where it's going to uh, answer the question. If it thinks it's NetSuite, it's going to answer it with NetSuite and try there first. Uh, Now, I know that you can, like, our technical guy was trying to figure out how to connect Salesforce. He thinks you're going to have to use a different connector to connect with Salesforce. And NetSuite told us that you could. So I'm kind of thinking that you can, but I think you would have to tell it which system pulled this data from this connection and this one from the other one. But I believe that it is possible because NetSuite did tell us that that was possible. I haven't tried that personally yet, Jason.
Okay. Would you agree that it's a best practice then to communicate as part of your prompt where the data source for your answer should come from?
If it's not intuitive, right? Certainly that would be helpful, right? And if you help guide it where it should look for the prompt, but I didn't have to tell it and it went to NetSuite, right? So, but I'm only connected to NetSuite. But if you were connected to multiple places, maybe you would have to tell it that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jason.
All right. So I was trying to answer a question while Claude was running, but you can see it created a sales order 2424 for Biggs Inc., which is the one that I picked, and it's status pending fulfillment. So I can show you in NetSuite that it created that sales order. And why didn't it did show me? Let's show all. We're gonna get no. All right, here's my sales order 2424 for Biggs Inc. And it created it. I'm gonna open it real quick. It created my sales order. It did it for a quantity of 2. It used the base price. If I wanted to change the price, I could have told it that, but it created that sales order in NetSuite for me. All right, next question, Aaron. When we first tried Claude with the NetSuite MCP, we had some challenges with it pulling data from the correct fields. Will it know that we want to pull the names of the fields as we have renamed them, or will it look for the native NetSuite name to pull the data from? That's a good question. I haven't tried that, Aaron, so my guess is it's might look at some of the native names. The other thing you could do is ask it by internal IDs because that's what it's going back to look for. So you could say, hey, or ask it first the field name and see what it comes back and brings back for you so that you know that that it's going to find the right data. So I would say I would test it first and say, okay, on sales order this, what does this field show me in the value? And then you would know that it knows to find that data based on the name that you renamed the field. And
Thank
if
you.
not, you might have to use the internal ID because you probably don't want to use the field IDs, but it does like the internal IDs as well. But you could probably teach it that that field name is that and tell it that first and say this internal ID is this field. So when I'm asking you these questions, refer to it. So that might
Thank
help
you.
as well.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right, Heather, I know you have some other prompts that you wanted to run, but and as Heather's kind of running those those prompts. So feel free to put any other prompts that you guys might have questions about in the chat here so we can go through them.
All right. So we're going to run a sales backorder report for subsidiary US West. While it's running this, I did ask it to run an AR aging report last night. And I'm going to tell you, it took me over an hour to get the report correct. And the only way I could get the report correct was to specifically point out invoices that shouldn't be included or invoices that should be included and tell Claude why or why not they shouldn't be included so it could adjust its prompts. So it's probably not good for something that's a standard report out there. And if you think about an AR aging report, the AR aging report has to look at, was it paid by the date that I'm running the report, or was it open? So it's having to look at payments and determine, it's having to look at credit memos, unapplied cash, maybe journal entries. Mine had foreign currency. It had an issue with foreign currency. It brought in the foreign currency amount and not the US dollar amount. So I had to coach it on that. But after I coached it, oh, and it tried to cheat. I told it one of the foreign currency ones that the amount should have been for 10,000 and it had it listed for like 4,000 and change. And it said, well, I'll just change the amount. Do you want me to update it in NetSuite? And I'm like, oh, no, no. That's a foreign currency. Go find the right value in the field. So it did try to cheat on me last night. So, so you do have to be careful. That's what one thing I would tell you. You have to validate. It's not always correct. I've tried other reports. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. This backorder report, I can tell you, is correct. It actually is running a standard report out of NetSuite. The first time I ran it, it told me what report that it was going to bring it in as, but it is running a sales backorder report. I have that report open. So here's the actual report in NetSuite. So it actually did run this report out of NetSuite. So, and it is 100% correct on what it brings in for the values. We can see that there's 30 for the top line and 30 in NetSuite, 5 for the next line. So I have validated this report, which is the other thing that any user turning loose on this has to validate. You can't just come back and say, well, Claude said this. Claude's not always right. And it has to learn how to read that data as well. This backorder report is 100% correct. So I can tell it, add the purchase orders for the backordered items. And Claude will go out and add purchase orders. Can we just, as Claude's doing this, Brooke, can you turn Michael on so he can ask his question?
No problem. Hang on one second here, Michael, and I will turn on your mic. There you go.
All right. So Heather, how do you think about when it comes to reporting, using something like Claude to give you a report versus using a NetSuite like financial planning reports or reports that are out of the box?
So keep in mind that Claude is going to try to run an out-of-the-box report first. And if it
Okay.
doesn't find one, it will create the SQL for it.
Yep.
So the other thing that after it creates that SQL, you can have it create the code for that SQL. You can tell it create it into a Suitelet, and then you could put it in your sandbox, and I would test it.
Okay.
I would test it for several months before I would say this is one I would put in production, just because anytime it encounters an anomaly or something that it didn't have in the first time you ran it, it might need more training and you might need to adjust that code. So, it doesn't, It doesn't
Yeah.
know everything about NetSuite, but that's what it's going to try to do first. It will look for an existing save search, an existing report, and if it doesn't find one, then it will write the code.
Have you started playing around with Claude Cowork in Excel?
I have not.
Okay. So
So
what you
I
can
have,
do is you can load Claude into Excel and then tell it to run the report, bring it into Excel, right? Bring it in as if you did an export from NetSuite. I think the scary thing for us right now is, we have people in the organizations like, oh, cool, I can bring in those reports, but those reports aren't validated. They may not necessarily pass an audit. And so I'm trying to look for give a recommendation of best practices of when to use Claude for reporting versus, okay, maybe you should go into NetSuite. Does that make sense?
it does, because you cannot enforce the users in Claude, even if you have an artifact and shared the artifact, you cannot enforce them to use that. So, and it doesn't mean when they go ask Claude in NetSuite, it doesn't tell them that it's correct.
Yes.
So I would say you would need, I would create those artifacts into a suitelet. I mean, once it creates that report, you can say, create the suitelet for me.
Yeah.
And then I would bring it in through my normal change control process. And therefore, it would be just like you had something custom developed, right? And then you would say, okay, we have validated this, and now the users can use this one. So because most, I don't know if I would trust all users to validate the data that they're getting back. And that's what it takes. Like that AR aging was totally incorrect last night,
Yeah.
and it took me over an hour to fix it.
Okay. I'd be interested to learn more just on the whole governance part of this as you start digging deeper. Maybe you and I can have a chat offline too.
Okay.
Thank you.
All
Thanks,
right.
Michael.
So we can see that it created my purchase orders while we were answering the question. So that didn't take it very long, but it created 3 POs and it ordered all the correct quantities. So we have a question, and I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce your
Okay.
name.
Nilofar, I'm going to allow you to speak here. And
All
Heather's
right,
going to put your
so
prompt in.
I'm going to take your prompt exactly as you asked it and let Claude go with it. And you can see it's running SweetQL in the background, but it is going to come back and tell us, here's the customers, the orders that are all affected. So Claude certainly is able to do that. Claude also
Does that answer your
can
question,
do other
Nilofar?
things.
I believe it does. I'm going to disable talking here. Sorry, Heather.
So it can also do, uh, it can create dashboards. I'm going to ask it to create an on-time delivery in the style of NetSuite. This one's going to take it a little bit longer. It might be quicker because I had done this last night. Um, so it's going to create a dashboard in the style of NetSuite. It actually will also create Suitelet related to it. So you can see that on the right, it's showing me the code of what it's writing. To do that dashboard, now I found last night sometimes it didn't show me the dashboard afterwards. So as soon as it's done writing its code, I will have it show me the dashboard since it's not doing that. Any other questions while it's generating this code? It won't take it too much longer, but I can answer a question in between.
I'm not seeing any others here, Heather, that are popping up, but I was recalling, kind of just thinking about Michael's question there on the governance piece. You mentioning that you have another consultant friend that has had some work recently with kind of unraveling some of the suitelets. I'm probably saying this incorrectly. Suitelets or different code that some users have allowed Claude to kind of deploy into NetSuite. Can you talk a little bit more about how kind of important it is to make sure that there's a little bit of knowledge on how or why that specific prompt might affect your system kind of down the line? Because Claude really wants to please you, but doesn't necessarily know the repercussions down the road there.
Okay, so let's say you have a highly customized environment. I can think of one client on the phone right now that has that. And you tell Claude to create me a script to do something. Claude doesn't know all your business processes. It doesn't know all your interrelated things, that doesn't know all the nuances of how to create that script. So yes, it could create a script. Yes, it will update the data, but I have friends in the consulting business that are getting data cleanup because they did just that. They had it write a script, but they really didn't know their system well enough, and they didn't know enough to tell Claude what they really needed. So yeah, it wrote the script on what it thought it needed to write the script, and it did update data, but it wasn't correct for that client's environment. So you can't just turn like a normal end user loose and let it to do some of those things, because you may not get, you might get a mess in the back end as well. So you would have to be very careful with some of that. You would still need probably a system analyst or a solution architect to validate and test and make sure that the script that it is writing is correct for what you need in your system. Oh, so you can see that here is the dashboard. I'm going to try to, I don't know how to make it full. See if I can make it bigger there. Here's the dashboard for on-time delivery that Claude just created. And Claude made this artifact. I don't know if you can see that here in the center of my screen. This is the code for that dashboard. So I can tell it to make this into a suitelet, and it will give me the code to then put into NetSuite. So now, but I still would not just take this and dump it in production, right? I would put it in a sandbox. I would validate every number on here before I would turn it loose to an end user. I wouldn't just assume that it's correct because it may not be correct. It's pretty, and I found that with another report that I tried to write for inventory. They gave me a beautiful report, and the display format was nice, but the numbers were not accurate, and it was not something that I would give to a client because Claude couldn't get it right. And it was a complex report that I couldn't write with a safe search. So I thought I would give it to Claude and see if it could write it, and Claude could not. And I tried changing the prompt many times. So sometimes you do have to tell it, hey, wait a minute, this number's wrong. The total shipments is wrong. You counted wrong, and this is why. And then it'll come back and it'll adjust its code. So you do have to go back and forth with it.
Looks like we have another
Okay.
question here, Heather.
Okay, Don. Yes, I believe it because those custom fields are part of NetSuite. Claude should be able to read them. They're part of your database. It's part of your NetSuite, so you should be able to use those fields with Claude.
Awesome. Thanks, Heather. Okay.
So, I mean, I know that this one is like the wow factor with the dashboard, but even still, I have not validated this. I've let it make it, but I would still go back and validate every number on it because just like my AR aging and my inventory report, Claude was not correct the first time. So I would not guarantee that this would be correct the first time. Let's see, what else have I asked Claude to do? So when I asked it to do a sales report, you can ask it, data, as long as it's within your role and you have permissions, Claude is able to access that data. And I showed you that what happens if you don't have permissions.
Heather,
I've had, sure.
oh, sorry. I was gonna kind of just ask a question, maybe from my end of things, and I'm not nearly as technical as probably everyone else on the phone here, but can you maybe give some examples of Claude doing some more like, I guess, data analysis kind of information? So I'm not going to really be great at giving you a specific example, but maybe something that like would be beneficial kind of from a CFO perspective, or maybe something more on the operations side that you could kind of address. Oh, Michael has a good one. Analyze my budget versus actual.
Yeah, but we know we didn't have a budget. So I'm going to have him
Oh,
review my income statement for this year compared to last year. So that I just asked it to review my income statement for this year compared to last year, and it should provide those insights since I know we didn't have budgets in here. So now it's going to pull both income statements and it should give me insights. And if it doesn't, then I can specifically say, tell me some nuances of the data or what you think it can't, what are you seeing? But normally it's going to do that. Now, whatever reason, it's going out and writing code. So it apparently didn't find a comparative income statement, which I find kind of interesting. I don't know if there's one out there, but it will try to look for that first. And if not, it's going to write the code for it, which is what it's doing right now, which when you see that it's writing the code for that, that's when you really have to check those numbers, right? Because it's not using a pre-built report. Now, if you had that pre-built report, you could tell it to use it. If I had custom forms for creating specific types of purchase orders, I could tell it create a purchase order and use that specific form so that I know that it would validate the fields that I needed to validate. So you can tell it that, but you do have to tell it. Otherwise, it would use the preferred form. And I know that some people have different forms for different purchase orders, different types of sales orders. So the form might be specific because different fields are required. So you would have to tell it those things in order to get the information back that you're wanting. So a lot of it is trial and error, playing with the prompts, right? Making sure that you give it enough information. You can give it information on the format. If I had told, now it's going to give us this nice comparison, which is not what I asked for, but you can see that it's telling you strong improvement in revenue, gross profit better, expenses higher but more controlled. And so it is actually analyzing the data that it's seeing, but it actually gave us this, even though we didn't ask for it like this, but it is giving you year-to-date 2025, year-to-date 2026. There's the just like an income statement, right? So just like an income statement report. Also, we didn't ask, but it gave us some bar graphs and some dashboard tiles as well. So it gave us a little more than we asked for, which is what it tries, like Brooke said, it tries to please and tries to think about what you really want to do. And sometimes it's, not right in what it's asking. I know a lot of us have played with ChatGPT and some of those things, and it's not always right. It can also find things in NetSuite for you, right? So uh, it can, if it has access to your file cabinet, it can find a document in your file cabinet if you're looking for it. A friend of mine had a record updated by a script, and he asked Claude, how did this record get updated? And the only thing we can think of that it did do is it went through the server logs and found the script that updated that record. But it was able, because if you looked at the record, it might say sweet script, but it came back and it told him the script that updated that record. So I thought that was pretty cool, because I do talk with some of my other friends that are consultants in the industry, so we kind of go back and forth of what we've seen Claude to do. And by any means, I'm not an expert at Claude, but it doesn't take much to be an expert and to get data out of it. It just takes time adjusting the prompts, and it takes time validating the results.
Looks like we have another question here, Heather, from Tony. Tony, I'm going to allow you to speak if you'd like.
Okay. Tony, the task record, is the task record already out in NetSuite?
Yeah, that's it assigned to employee.
I believe that if there's a task assigned to the employee, I haven't tried that one, but it should be able to read the task record and perform the task if it's something like updating a customer name. It certainly should be able to do that. I don't have one of those out here, I don't believe, so I can't show you that. But I could probably show you offline. I could create that task record and then have it do that update. And so I could create that instance, but I don't have that kind of data created right now. But I believe that it could do that.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks, Tony.
Um, Now,
Um,
I'll also show you that I have artifacts. So like this is anything that's created, it has an artifact section, and I can show you my artifacts. So it actually saves them over here. So I have them here as long as I don't delete the chat. So you might want to save them, download those artifacts if you really want them saved. But if you delete the chat, I believe that the artifacts get deleted as well.
oh, good to know. I know we're kind of getting up on time here, so I just wanted to ask one last question of you, and then I will kind of close us out. But Heather, kind of moving forward in this, I know this is all of the AI stuff is really crazy out there, and there's just a lot of ability to do things. What is kind of the best way for any of the customers that we work with to leverage Luxent to help them with kind of their AI projects? Like, is there a best, maybe what you're thinking, a best process of kind of engaging us to help them create a plan, or what are you thinking on that front?
I think, we could certainly help with helping to develop the prompts, helping with the testing of it, because those are time-consuming things. Yes, it created this beautiful report, but if the data is not right and nobody's validating it, that's where I think that we could help. Just like if we were writing a save search, we would validate the data. So we could help with any of those type of things. I also do have, I'm in a demo environment. I'm not connected to any of the customer's environment. I can't connect to multiple environments with Claude, but I can certainly help with generic type things and say, hey, this is the prompt that I use to get that results, and help with those prompts and maybe helping with some of that.
Super
We can
helpful.
also help you get Claude connected, right? Make sure that you have the roles set up correctly, that type of thing as well.
Perfect. Do you have any kind of last closing things here, Heather, or am I okay to take the screen back?
I don't think I have anything else. I think that this is cutting edge. I think that it is helpful. I know that I use Claude every day. I can ask it questions of even out of my demo environment, even though I might be on a client environment, I'll ask the question out of the demo environment. I just think it's a helpful tool when used properly.
Yep, definitely. All right. Well, thank you so much, Heather. It's very exciting to kind of have this out there, and I know it's kind of a lot to take in, and it seems like there's endless capabilities. So thank you for kind of showing us some of the pieces that we could leverage and that the teams could leverage here. And we're really excited to kind of learn more about this. I feel like every time I talk to you, you have done more and more research on this topic and really how it could help our customers and in their environments. So thank you so much, everyone, for attending today. Before I let you go, please fill out the survey that will pop up on the screen. It just takes a couple of minutes, and it will help us kind of create our sessions that are coming down the line here. And don't forget, we've got more Lux University sessions coming up. May is custom KPIs and dashboards, June bank reconciliation, and July is MRP. So in that survey, we'll also ask if you would like for us to reach out to you to kind of set up some time to talk more about AI and all of that and how it can pertain specifically to your business. So let us know. And thank you again for spending time with us today. And we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.